So picture this. It's August 28th, 1963, and 250,000 people, they just descend on the nation's capital. They came for one cause, in what would become one of the most pivotal moments in American history. This is the story of the March on Washington, a peaceful protest that really truly reshaped a nation.
I mean, seriously, how do you even begin to organize something that massive? How do you get 250,000 people to travel, often from hundreds of miles away, to demand jobs and freedom? Well, the answer, it turns out, is an idea that had been simmering for more than 20 years.
That's right, the march didn't just pop up out of nowhere in 1963. Nope, the roots of this thing go way, way back, all the way to the Second World War.
So, the whole idea really started with this one guy, A. Philip Randolph. He was a fierce advocate for African-American labor rights, and back in 1941, he saw that Black Americans were being completely shut out of all these booming defense industry jobs. His idea? It was bold. He was going to organize a massive march of 100,000 people to demand fair hiring practices.
And here's the really amazing part. Just the threat of the march was so powerful that President Roosevelt acted before it even had to happen. He went ahead and issued an executive order that banned discrimination in the defense industries. So Randolph gets this huge victory, and not a single person had to actually march. But that powerful idea, it was now firmly planted.
But, over the next couple of decades, that original idea, it started to grow a lot. The initial goal was really specific, jobs in the defense industry. But by 1963, that vision had expanded dramatically. It was now a much broader call for jobs and freedom, a demand for sweeping civil rights laws and genuine economic equality for everyone.
So, what brought this idea roaring back to life? Well, fast forward to the early 60s. President John F. Kennedy had proposed the Civil Rights Act, but it was totally stalled out in Congress. It was just stuck. The movement needed a massive, massive push to break that gridlock.
And this is where two absolute giants of the movement come together. You have A. Philip Randolph with his original march concept from the 40s, and he joins forces with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his organization. They decided to combine all their efforts into one single, massive demonstration. Now, to pull off something this huge, you can't go it alone. And they didn't. They built this incredible coalition. This wasn't the work of just one group. It was a partnership of the Big Six, the most influential civil rights organizations in the country at the time. You had groups like the NAACP, CORE, and the National Urban League, all uniting behind this one monumental event. That broad base of support was absolutely critical.
For an event this massive, you need a logistical genius. And they had one. His name was Bayard Rustin. As a key advisor to Dr. King, Rustin was the master organizer, the guy working tirelessly behind the scenes. He coordinated everything, from bus routes and sanitation to the minute-by-minute schedule of speakers. The march just wouldn't have happened without his incredible planning.
And all that planning, it brings us to the day itself, August 28th, 1963. After months of organizing and decades of dreaming, the day was finally here.
And boy, did the people come. By bus, by train, by car, from all across the country. A crowd of 250,000 people, black and white, young and old, all gathered peacefully right there at the Lincoln Memorial. That image alone was just an incredibly powerful statement of unity and pure determination. The whole day was just filled with these powerful, powerful voices. It kicked off, appropriately, with the man who started it all, A. Philip Randolph. And the day was woven together with these incredible musical performances from icons like Mahalia Jackson, Marian Anderson, and even a young Bob Dylan, all leading up to the day's final speaker. And that final speaker, well, he was about to deliver not just the most memorable moment of the day, but one of the most famous speeches in all of human history.
But here's something that might surprise you, something a lot of people don't know. The most famous part of that speech almost didn't happen. You see, Dr. King was working from his prepared notes, but partway through, he must have felt the energy from that massive crowd. He just set his notes aside and started preaching from the heart. That's when he improvised much of the iconic "I Have a Dream" section we all know today. Those words just echoed across the National Mall and, really, around the world. This simple, powerful vision for the future became the emotional anchor for the entire civil rights movement. It was a 16-minute address that perfectly captured a generation's hopes.
But look, as incredible as that speech was, The march was about more than that. The ultimate goal here was to turn all of that passion and moral clarity into concrete political action.
And you know what? The impact was immediate. I mean, the entire world was watching. With thousands of reporters there, the images of that massive, peaceful, and determined crowd were broadcast everywhere. This created a huge wave of public support that politicians in Washington simply could not ignore anymore.
So you can literally draw a straight line from the protest to the policy. The march in August creates this unstoppable public pressure. That pressure is what finally helps break the political logjam in Congress. And then, less than a year later, the Civil Rights Act was finally signed into law.
And what a law it was, signed by President Lyndon B. Johnson. It was a truly landmark piece of legislation. It made discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin illegal. And it officially prohibited segregation in schools, at work, and in public places. This was the tangible, legal legacy of the march.
So when you look back at it all, from an idea that was simmering for 2 decades to a law that changed the country, the story of the March on Washington is really a masterclass in vision, in building coalitions, and in the enduring power of peaceful protest. And it leaves us with a pretty important question. What can we learn from this incredible moment to help us face the challenges of our own time?